Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, drivers, skivers and cliff divers, welcome along to the Joe Spivey YouTube channel where we discuss books and little else. And you can see, folks, that I am at my dictatorial best, my order-following best. I am officially a brown shirt of the Einsatzgruppen, folks. Or is it the Hitler Youth that were in brown shirts? I'm not sure. But I am looking particularly Nazified this morning, which is not the usual way for popular influencers to open their videos, but there we are. It is a mordant, not a mordant day, that's the wrong word to use. It is a gloomy day here in Great Britain. It is, not very good at all. Morbid was the word I was looking for. Clouds aplenty. But yes, welcome back to my second and probably final review / commendation of George Eliot's Middlemarch, written in 1870. First of all, again, if you want the book and all its great, fantastic heft to be instantly beamed onto your screen, then just skip 4 or 5 minutes. I'm going to waffle for a short while. Yesterday, to start off with a shameless plug, I wrote an article in response to not really much of an internet furore, but a productive nationwide discussion about the projected smoking bans which Keir Starmer's Labour government is going to ratify and legislate into being very, very soon indeed. So if you're fagging it from one of our little devils, then you will not be able to do so outside of a pub or a restaurant. As it stands at the moment, you can sit in a beer garden, light up, and envenomate the food, the lungs, and the facial features of the imps and the nice little children, or the gorgeous nuclear family beside you, if indeed you want to do that. And yes, I've justified it. It's down there. It'll be linked down below. It's completely free. My Substack is usually paid only, but it's completely free because I haven't been writing for some time, because I've been focusing on larger things. So I thought I'd offer you some. I'd just throw a little off cut for you all to enjoy. So yes, please do read that and let me know what you think. The arguments are not born of ignorance, as I say in the piece. I was a smoker for about 12 months and have calculated that I spent well beyond £1,000 purely on packets of cigarettes. So yeah, I know what I'm talking about in that regard. And then finally, just before we get into to Middlemarch, I tickled you all by suggesting that it might be to our mutual benefit for me to do a live stream on Friday, because there is a big old match between Hull Kingston Rovers, my infallible rugby league team, against the Wigan Warriors, who are in second place. There's going to be a big old match. And the live stream is going to start at 7:30, which is 30 minutes prior to an 8 p.m. kickoff. Of course, I am, as you know, in the United Kingdom, the sceptic Albion's Isle, so the land girt by sea. So what's 7:30 in America? And my demographers tell me that most of you guys are horrid burger munching Yanks. So I think you guys will be tuning in about 2 or 3. So if you're free on Friday, please tune in. It'll almost certainly be happening. I've no idea about the facilities and how it is that one puts a live stream on, but I'm sure it'll be within my technological capabilities. And so yeah, that'll be happening. You feel free to ask me any question whatsoever, and of course my sporting reactions will be being recorded. But now that all of that admin and all of that titillating is out of the way, we can get into the second and final, or at least on here, look at George Eliot's Middlemarch. So now, of course, there are going to be a few spoilers. It's a kind of it's a cliquey in-word or in-phrase to say that this book is magnificent despite its just sort of paucity of events and paucity of personal significance, but I'm going to refute that and say that the themes and happenings and difficulties in this book are of the utmost importance. They have a stamina unlike very many discussed in the Victorian period. But yeah, we're in a small, tiny little village, or it's a hamlet / town. There is Lowick, and there is Freshitt, and there is Tipton, and then there's Middlemarch, which you would put as just a small, comely village, which in which many participants know one another. So yes, and we have, should we say, 4 strands to this now. We have Dorothea and Mr. Casaubon, the beautiful but sort of inwardly indignant Dorothea, who walks around with a little bit of a chip on her shoulder, but is amazed by Mr. Casaubon initially and wants to be a loving, matronly amanuensis for him. He's writing The Key to Mythologies, or The Key of Mythologies. He's got a big sand drawing work to complete just before, indeed, he pops his clogs. So we've got those guys, and their relationship has fallen to bits, frankly. But again, the almost stereotypical, there are no stereotypes in Middlemarch, but the done thing when analysing this book is to say that, oh, poor Dorothea, let us play the violin. She didn't quite realise that this greying, septuagenarian was very much on his knees, and she hasn't been allowed to help him in the way that she envisioned because she simply has not got any of the raw material in her skull. She's trying her damnedest, but she's not the helper that she envisioned herself to be. But Mr. Casaubon has been done wrongly too. I know this is very rarely said when people review Middlemarch, but the old wise Casaubon has been done wrongly too, because Dorothea changes instantly upon marriage. She doesn't like her sojourn in Rome. She doesn't like their honeymoon. And she bears grudges, and she tries her damnedest to please him, but there is something missing there, and Casaubon doesn't get exactly what is, I was almost going to say owed to him then, but he doesn't get a beautiful, imperfectible wife. He really does not. Dorothea does undergo, to my reckoning anyway, a little bit of a detestable change, but parking that, again, spoilers. Mr. Casaubon, as is the dutiful thing for very many men of that age who are boring their wives, he does the dutiful thing and pops his clogs and meets his maker in the clouds. And Dorothea, unbeknownst to both of them, he tells her that it would be best for her to continue with his studies. And again, unbeknownst to most, he creates a codicil in his will, overtly prohibiting the marriage of Dorothea to Will Ladislaw, who is the roguish, sort of slightly maybe ignoble because of his foreign origins and his foreign birth, but artistically inclined, shadowy, pseudo-Byronic figure, who obviously piques Dorothea's interest. We're not quite sure romantically or psychologically, but he permits that, not because he thinks that Will Ladislaw is going to burden Dorothea with husbandry, but because he thinks that Will Ladislaw wants to get all over his property. Will Ladislaw is a second cousin to Casaubon, and that's where we are. I do have some quotations from their difficulties in the first opening sections. Again, I could easily have turned over about 74 different pages. So this section in particular talks about Mr. Casaubon seems to want academic posterity more than he cares for the objective merits of the book. He just wants to leave some sort of mythological legacy, some sort of bibliophilic legacy for someone. He doesn't really care how it gets done, and he doesn't care how much of a grind it is. So here we are. But Mr. Casaubon was now brooding over something through which the question of his health and life haunted his silence with a more harassing importunity even than through the autumnal unripeness of his authorship. It is true that this last might be called his central ambition, but there are some kinds of authorship in which by far the largest result is the uneasy susceptibility accumulated in the consciousness of the author. The uneasy susceptibility. One knows of the river by a few streaks amid a long gathered deposit of uncomfortable mud. There was the way with Mr. Casaubon's hard intellectual labours. Their most characteristic result was not the key to all mythologies, but a morbid consciousness that others did not give him the place which he had not demonstrably merited, a perpetual suspicious conjecture that the views entertained of him were not to his advantage, a melancholy absence of passion in his efforts at achievement, and a passionate resistance to the confession that he had achieved nothing. And then later on, Eliot, to her great credit, George Eliot, to her great credit, never lets a character be attacked from all sides. She always puts in a defence, even for the seemingly least defensible. Poor Mr. Casaubon, she says. This suffering was the harder to bear because it seemed like a betrayal. This is talking about Dorothea and her change. The young creature who had worshipped him with perfect trust had quickly turned into the critical wife, and early instances of criticism and resentment had made an impression which no tenderness and submission afterwards could remove. To his suspicious interpretation, Dorothea's silence now was a suppressed rebellion. A remark from her which he had not in any way anticipated was an assertion of conscious superiority. Her gentle answers had an irritating cautiousness in them, and when she acquiesced, it was a self-approved effort of forbearance. The tenacity with which he strove to hide this inward drama made it the more vivid for him, as we hear with the more keenness what we wish others not to hear. And that is itself an honour to read out to you folks. There we have, Mr. Casaubon being slightly disappointed and realising that the key to all mythologies is not going to be on the school syllabuses as he would like. But when he duly goes away, Dorothea sort of promises not to marry a second time. We wonder whether to believe this, but he also says that his love's labour must be continued by her, and she rather obsequiously submits to that and tries her best, but it's not really going well. The poor child had become altogether unbelieving as to the trustworthiness of that key which had made the ambition and the labour of her husband's life. It was not wonderful that, in spite of her small instruction, her judgment in this matter was truer than his, for she looked with unbiased comparison and a healthy sense of probabilities on which he had risked all his egoism. A great arithmetically fantastic section there, whereby somebody who essentially just introduces fresh eyes to a topic can be more helpful than the original writers. That's the first section, or the first branch. Then we have Lydgate and Rosamond Vincy, whose sections are not highlighted in here because I couldn't really get to them. I do have, for those of you wanting to know what it's like on the cutting room floor of a Joe Spivey book review or fourth piece, or indeed YouTube review, here is the hard graft behind this epicene presentation. So we've got both, we have plot descriptions here, and we have bits and bobs of criticism from me. So I'll either write about what the characters are doing or what the author's doing, and then I have bits and bobs of, you'll see there, I've got bits and bobs of writings there. So page 280, it's about poor Casaubon. I've noticed, of course, I'm writing an essay on this book, and indeed on Rosemary Ashton's life of George Eliot, and I've noticed a bit of overreach. Every now and then you can see the sweat on the pages, and you can you can tell what Eliot's had for breakfast. In other words, she's pouring lots of her life into there, smashing her notebooks out as she did with Daniel Deronda, and just trying a little bit too hard. I think it's Dr. Johnson who said that some prose stinks of the lamp. I.e. you stayed up far too late and overworked it. And yes, so I've got, for example, there on page 303, there is overreach. Of course, as Sherlock Holmes said of his brother Mycroft's calligraphy, I do write like a drunken crab. But I also have, I'm going to do a big section on her turns of phrase, her gorgeous ebullient turns of phrase. And so we have page 528 and 522, TOPH, that's turns of phrase. So that's how it's done. And I currently have 4 A4 double-sided pages filled up with all of that stuff. I don't refer to that whenever I'm doing a review on here, but I do whenever I'm writing about it. Yes, but the next bit is about Lydgate and Rosamond Vincy, and unfortunately, Mr. Lydgate, despite being a very, very excellent doctor, does not have adequate funds, and because they marry quite quickly, their actual I want to say sedunation or their combination, their coming together, isn't highlighted very well. Neither is again, spoilers, the miscarriage of Rosamond. But they're sort of they're garlanding their early married life with, very, very, very nice things and furniture and upholstery and, tea places and all of that type of stuff. And before long, Lydgate has to confess that he cannot pay for it. And there is nothing worse than financial ignominy and it appearing to others as though you're you're going along just fine, and all of a sudden you haven't got the proverbial pot to pee in, and some of my neighbours are throwing things in the bin, so I'm just going to act as if I am a very, very normal human being, just simply talking to a phone. How very marvellous. So yes, Lydgate and Rosamond, their relationship starts to wane. Lydgate initially felt that marrying Rosamond would be a nice sort of professional beta blocker. He wouldn't have to worry about the damned woman, the damned womanhood sort of lurking in the streets, and he could just have himself a nice madam and just sit her there on the bed and it all would be well. I'm doing him a disservice there. He's much more sentimental than that. But Rosamond is herself spoilt and profligate and isn't used to making sacrifices, and is not unwilling, but very, very obviously irked by the need to make these sacrifices. And yeah, theirs is the smallest story. Lydgate comprises a sort of quadruped of pariahs in Middlemarch. We have Mr. Lydgate, we have Bulstrode, Nick Bulstrode, who is coming into the story soon, and we have Will Ladislaw. All of those 3 or 4 individuals are new to Middlemarch and have cited a kind of exclusionary origin, and because many of the inhabitants are portrayed anyway as being slightly troglodytic, and their headspaces leave something to be desired. Those 3 or 4 characters can be grouped as I say, as pariahs. Then we have Mr. Brooke and Will Ladislaw, who have themselves a pioneer newspaper, and they are pushing through the reform. Of course, the Wikipedia page opens with this being an almost direct response to the Reform Act of 1832. There is no way that you can read this and think that that is George Eliot's senior priority. It is demonstrably not. But nonetheless, there's a very fine bit where Mr. Brooke is giving a speech about the upcoming election. Mr. Brooke, for those that don't know, is the uncle of Dorothea and Celia, and the local Conservative candidate, Mr. Pinkerton, and his lot have set up a kind of enlarged dummy of Mr. Brooke, who farcically recants what it is that he's just said, to the schadenfreude enjoyment of everybody in the crowd, and that's jolly wonderful. And Will is very much on the edge of leaving. He realises suddenly that he can't marry Dorothea. They have very many tense interactions, but it's not going well at all. Then we have Mr. Bulstrode, who is a nice, or at least ostensibly very, very accommodating, very personable banker. He's got loads and loads of money, but a gentleman by the name of Mr. Raffles comes by and shows him that, or at least essentially just completely completely destructs any opportunity of Bulstrodian happiness. We learn that again, spoilers, Mr. Bulstrode was part of the Calvinist church, but then also was part of a pawnbroking service, and got himself in there. And when the big proprietor of that pawnbroking service passed on, he married the widow, and obviously made an awful lot of money from there. But that married widow, the daughter of the big proprietress and proprietor of the pawnbroking service, had a daughter, and she went off to join the theatre, and that happens to be, I think her name is Sarah Dunkirk or something, and that is Will Ladislaw's mother. And so as to maximise his profits and to make sure that no other thieving hands via primogeniture got their thieving hands on the fortune, Bulstrode at the time found the daughter, but didn't reveal his findings to that woman. And so he's got something to hide. That is dishonourable, very, very dishonourable. Not only is his money-making schemes rather dishonourable in the pawnbroking service and the banking service, but the way in which he maximises his profits is also dishonourable too. And Mr. Raffles knows of this, and he is sketched gorgeously. He's a very cunning character indeed. So he bursts into Bulstrode's house called the Shrubs one day, and goes from very, very compassionately hinting at the fact that he's got some dirt on him to overtly shouting it in his face. He's enjoying every moment of this, is Mr. Raffles. I've not had such fine luck as you, by Jove, talking about how successful he's been. Things went confoundedly with me in New York. Those Yankees are cool hands, and a man of gentlemanly feelings has no chance with them. I married, when I came back, a nice woman in the tobacco trade, very fond of me, but the trade was restricted, as we say. She'd been settled there a good many years by a friend, but there was a son too much in the case. Josh and I never hit it off. However, I made the most of my position, and have always taken my glass in good company. It's been all on the square with me. I am as open as the day. You won't take it ill of me that I didn't look you up before, but I have a complaint that makes me a little dilatory. I thought you were trading and partering away in London still, Bulstrode, and didn't find you there. But you see, I was sent to you, Nick, perhaps for a blessing to both of us. Mr. Raffles ended with a jocose snuffle. No man felt his intellect more superior to religious cant, and if the cunning which calculates on the meanest feelings in men could be called intellect, he had his share, for under the blurting, rallying tone with which he spoke to Bulstrode, there was an evident selection of statements, as if they had been so many moves at chess. So Bulstrode all of a sudden has somebody to waft away, but something that I'm going to light upon in my my longer review, or at least my entry for the essay competition, is Eliot's gratifying granularity on a very, very minor characters indeed. So the local rector, Mr. Fairbrother, his mum, who gets half a page of coverage but is crystallised perfectly. Who else? Mr. Raffles, who heretofore was a minor character or was only mentioned once, gets a load of a great deal of attention. Fred Vincy, who we'll come on to in just a moment, rides off to town, and Mr. Horrock and Mr. Bambridge, who he rides off to town with to sell his horse, they are given few lines but are sketched perfectly, and we know just who they are. Their form and outline is perfectly inscribed perpetually on our brains. Yeah, the masterful brush strokes that she executes, George Eliot, it's immense. She commits a great deal of effort to characterization, and much more characterization than a modern writer would to their major protagonist. So the person very much on the margins who has one or two lines, who does not in any way affect the storyline, gets more personal attention than Jack and Jill in Normal People, or Sally Rooney's, whatever the hell Sally Rooney's billet doux are called, whatever that fait accompli is called in Normal People. So yeah, George Eliot is a marvellous drawer, artist of humanity. And yeah, Fred Vincy, who has been not disinherited, but it was expected that when Mr. Featherstone passed, he would be given a lot of money. He doesn't get an awful lot of money, and completes his degree. I drew some comical allusions between myself or some comical similarities between myself and Fred Vincy last time. Fred doesn't receive the stipend slash Christ, what am I looking for? Doesn't receive the wage packet, the golden duck from Mr. Featherstone, and has to go and work with Caleb Garth. He, of course, loves little Mary Garth, who swears that she will not be with him if he is a clergyman, and so he commits a life to the field with Caleb Garth. But yeah, there is to be a railway built. There is an election based upon reform being done. But you can already tell by the fact that I have jabbered on for 23, 24, 25 minutes that there is so very much in this novel, and somehow you take it all in. Of course, I've written notes, but I haven't revised a single aspect of it. I've just been writing and putting it down, writing and putting it down, reading and putting it down. And yet, every character, every plot line, even some of the very many, resplendent descriptions are permanently embedded in my skull. And that, my friends, is the mark of an absolute genius at the peak of her powers, or at the zenith of her powers. So yes, I probably won't do any more now because I'll finish it, and there's only 200 pages left, and I probably can't get in. Well, I certainly could talk for another 20 minutes about it, but I'm going to keep you all in the dark because I'm going to be writing an essay on the thing. Thank you to Hannah Joyner, who is volunteered to read the execrable nonsense that I will write on it. So that'll be jolly good. She's volunteered to proofread it. She has a past in academia, I do believe. She's got a degree, unlike myself, and indeed has written an academic book or two of her own, which is again a more strenuous crop than I come from. So yes. that about covers me for today, folks. Don't forget that I'll be doing a live stream on Friday. I'll put a reminder out on my YouTube page. And yes, please do let me know if indeed you've ever been tempted by it. I know it's a toe crusher, and it's 800 pages of provincial life, when really you just like. You would just like episodes of Kim Kardashian nude making fried lobster for Gordon Ramsay. I know that tends to be the insatiable attitude of modern readers, but you will be inducted into this world, congratulated and inducted into this world. So please do get on it. But I have gone on for far too long. I'm going to go for a wander now on this gloomy Tuesday. And thank you ever so much for watching BookTube, and say goodbye.